Okay. Sorry everyone for this delay. I hope you're all still with us because this is a really interesting one, I think. And we're just going to jump right into it. Armando Vieira is here with us, who has a PhD in physics, interestingly, and was a professor and then became an entrepreneur and IT consultant. And he's the author of more than 70 applications, wrote a book on business applications of deep learning, and will talk to us now about ethic implications of AI. So Armando, if you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Great, then please
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Jan. Yeah. So in this conversation, I want to go through some topics about AI and ethics. It's been a active area of research and bringing lots of attention from several corners, not only from the research but also societal, because for the first time we are getting into a very interesting point where technology is really impacting society in a way that is not just as a tool, but is becoming cognitive. So what is the implications of these cognitive machines in our lives, in society? And the questions that are raised, I think it's something far beyond the scope of being just science, but also has political and economical and other implications in this process. So I want to bring you some topics for discussion in this very short presentation. So I want to raise the question of why AI has to do with ethics and why every one of us should care about it, because it's really a topic, in my opinion, is not being enough discussion in the media. And I want to unfold with you some possible scenarios, like the most common one, like AI outsmarting humans. These mostly holodesk scenarios of bad conscious robots killing humans, the weaponizing of AI, and also something which has been quite recently, we are being aware, is the surveillance states that are being possible with this technology and the implications for freedom of individuals. I want to raise the question about the value alignment and impossibility of coding ethics into machines, which some of the audience may think it's possible, and I will argue strongly against it. It's something I believe is not possible, and why it's risky to optimize a finite set of objectives and the implication that it may have to the society as a whole. And and then I will end up with some possible solutions, some areas like, first of all, to be aware of this problem, then how regulation can help mitigating this issue, and also bringing to the fact that this is a discussion that has to be as broad as possible, not just to be in the technological framework, but as society as a whole. So as probably most of you are aware, there's been some scenarios being unfold where we're trying to judge machines by the framework of humans, and trying to compare situations of how it's morally acceptable or not morally acceptable. The problem is that like this moral machine, I guess most of you are aware of this website, where basically you are presented with a scenario where you are in a self-driving car, and in front of you there's a certain amount of people, can be children, old people, and in front of you have to decide what action you should take, like killing the old people instead of killing the children, or killing there are several scenarios. I don't want to go much in detail here. The point I want to raise here is that humans have no intrinsic sensitivity utility function. Like if A is better than B is better than C, then we expect that A is better than C. It's simply not the case we have. If anything we have in our moral system, it's above all a survival mechanism. So we are built as survival devices, and above all, we try to save our own skin in this game. So we trying to put a morality burden in the machines that we don't have as human, I think is a very faulty starting point. So this goal of trying to come out with an absolute and completely flawless moral machine, I think it's a very dangerous thing to do, because we don't have it, and since we don't have it, how can we build it into machines? So another area where this artificial intelligence will be highly impactful is in medical scenarios, where we are getting to a point where we get machines, algorithms that are almost as good and sometimes better than humans in analyzing data and coming out with possible diagnostics. But that also should bring us to the point where, okay, so shall we trust the medical outcome, or shall we trust the machine? So we should trust the humans or the machines in terms of proposing a diagnostic and eventually a cure for a specific disease. I cite here the case of Watson. That's a device called by IBM, and it's been a failure in the medicine. And the reason for that is that it fails to incorporate all the complexities and all the uncertainties we have in medical area. There's lots of noise in the data. There's lots of inconsistencies in the data, and these algorithms are still failing. But they will come to a point where they will overcome these limitations. I believe it's going to be possible. And now the challenge will be, okay, what should we do? Should we trust the algorithm, or should we trust the human? And I think this is a wrong question, again. And citing this quotation where medical education should be reframed from a focus on knowledge, because knowledge and knowledge representation we are the weakest link as humans, so we will be completely overturned by machines. I'm not any doubt about that. But the focus should be on training students to interact and manage artificial intelligence machines that are not infallible, but can make but better than humans, and sometimes make mistakes. And you need to be accepted to have this element of uncertainty of mistake in the machines, because the way we treat machines at the moment are pretty much the way we treat like a car. We would expect to be completely predictable, completely flawless, and completely understandable. And in the future, I think all of these assumptions are going to be removed, and the machines will make mistakes. The machines will make some errors, and the machines will be not completely understandable as we understand other type of devices, and will be not completely under our control. So we cannot program them cannot be sure when we make them that they will behave in the way we think they will. So this idea that still being around for some time, that the machines can be completely built with a certain set of rules in order to behave properly, I think we should immediately get rid of this, because it's not simply possible, because reality is much messier. And if you look at our behavior, we always break rules. There are no way we can follow all of the rules in a consistent way, because the world is simply too messy, it's too complicated. And if you want to frame properly the world, I think it's more rightly framed as a game, and we have to analyze in game theory under the goal of surviving. That's pretty much what we are as individuals. We are playing games, and each of our actions have implications on others and implications on ourselves. And we try to evolve in this game in a way that we end up surviving and thriving in this environment. And this environment is dynamic, is not static, and cannot be framed as a set of rules. So I'm sorry. So the claims that we've been so my claim basically is that so technology will become more and more organic. So you need to be ready to interact with this artificial intelligence, to these devices, more and more as we interact, let's say, our pets or our or living entities, because they will become more and more autonomous, get decisions based on their own goals, and it's going to be impossible for us humans to control these goals. They will have an evolutionary nature, and the question we want to should answer is, okay, are we the rules we are trying to put on the machines? Can we follow these rules ourselves? And if you look at our history, we have a very nasty history in terms of doing good things or bad things. So 200 or 300 years ago, slavery was completely acceptable. Now it's not anymore. So, and we must wonder what kind of things we take as acceptable today that will not acceptable in the future. So if these rules evolve over time, we should also be aware that we implement them the right mechanism in the machine so that they will not become evil. And the question here is that the machines, we have such access to such a vast amount of data and such a capability to understand human behavior that they may well become in the situation where we think they are solving the right problem, but they solve it so well that we get caught in this process. Okay, so it's like a genie out of the box situation that we should be very careful at the moment. And even like, for instance, citing the case of Facebook, where if you look at the AI behind Facebook, you see that the goal, the objective it has behind it is very, very acceptable, I'll say. They just try to maximize engagement of users. But nobody predicted that as a side effect of that, you end up creating bubbles. So people live in their own bubbles, their own reality bubbles, and that is a very pernicious influence in society. So how can we change that in order that we make these technology devices more compatible with human values and with society and democracy as a whole? This is a challenge that surpasses by far the scope of technology itself. It enters into other realms of our organization as a society. Another thing I want to raise is it was discussed by Harari in detail in this book, Homo Sapiens and Homo Deus. It's a fact that for the first time we have algorithms and data that are so sophisticated. They know so much about our lives that can hack the human being, in the sense that they can make us behave and do things we normally don't do in normal circumstances. And they do it in such a subtle and such a sophisticated way that we are not even aware that we're being hacked. And this is very, very dangerous, because I think in the long term, it puts society in the situation that may put as existential risk. And in order to overcome that, I think we should create boundaries. It creates limitations on what these algorithms and the companies that own these algorithms can do with our data, and how we can check and create some balances about the scope and the range of application of these algorithms. So one last point I really like to address here, or a few points, is first, it's the fact that intelligence is decoupled from consciousness. Think of it, these algorithms they have no consciousness, so they don't represent a threat. But you don't need to have consciousness to do amazing things, to be very, very intelligent. So the fact that you don't have consciousness, it doesn't have any limitation per se. And the other fact is that the intelligence itself is a process. It doesn't need to live in the entity. It doesn't need to live in the body. It doesn't, like in humans. We haven't ever seen this before. Like when we see an entity, a creature, we always see the brains and the body, but for the first time, we have the intelligence decoupled from the body. And this can be a problem because, for the one hand, we have possibility of intelligence that's completely distributed over the universe. And the second time, you don't have a way to balance the behaviors of these entities. So we cannot put artificial intelligence in prison. We cannot enforce the behavior of these intelligent devices because they don't live inside the body. They live inside of the silicon. So that brings the problem of alignment. That's really the one big problem that is being extensively detailed, studied by Jerzewski in the reference I put in one slide. It's far from simple to make sure the values of artificial intelligence are aligned from humans, because we learn how to behave, how to socialize with each other through interactions. And we have from families, from groups, from friends, but we cannot build these relationships, these links with artificial intelligence, because everything is fake. You don't become friends with Google Home or Alexa. It's just an algorithm. No matter how kind he is to you, he's just trying to hack you. He's trying to sell you stuff. That's the purpose of this algorithm. So how are we going to be sure we are aligned with these values is far from an easy problem to solve. And this leads us to the privacy of data, who owns the data, who all can share the data, and the fact that this ethics not just ethics, because in the end of the day, when you buy a product and take an action, it's not just thinking of the morality of it, you think of the economical side of it. And in the end, economics, most of the time, you end up winning this game, and you need to make sure that it doesn't have implications, because we're not giving away our freedom just because we have cheaper products. And this needs to be aware of the fact that we need to build this balance, checks and balance, and it has to be in the right way. So it has to be not to inhibit or to block innovation, but to let humans have the decision in the end of the game, in the end of the process, it be a human thing. I think we are still a long journey, and most people are not really aware of how far we have been in this journey of artificial intelligence, and especially the politicians. And I think it's about time to have the discussion. Because some guys propose regulation, like Elon Musk, restrain digital monopolies. Some other propose move to Mars and just be nice to machines because one day they will rule the world. So safety alignment is a powerful AGI, is difficult. I recommend the ones who know more about this topic to Elvier Ilolowski. He's the guy that's been discussing this for a long time. And they present some very strong arguments why this is a hard problem, eventually impossible to solve. So the only way we can really solve this problem, I think, is through socializing. I think we need to come out with a way where we have to engage with these machines the same way we engage with other living entities. We need to get used to it, and we need to create an ecosystem, a reason where both of us will win, and none of us will get outsmarted by the other part. And within a very strong regulation environment, especially for big corporations that have a lot of data and a lot of power in terms of algorithms. And yeah, here's some reference. You can read more about it. And I don't know if you have time for questions, but this is pretty much my presentation. And thank you for your time. I'm sorry for being late.
Thank you, Armando. We actually indeed have some time for questions, and there was a really interesting conversation also happening in the chat. So while maybe people are typing up their questions, I would love to hear kind of your take on this conversation. So it started, well, Anne posted a, I don't know if it's a tweet or an article, but the gist of it was that the emissions of a Google or a Microsoft are tiny compared to the amount of increased emissions they can enable in a client. It's why the tech industry is key to carbonization over the long term. So that is Paul Johnston who said that.
Yeah. Well, it's true that we are getting. The brain consumes 20% of the the energy resources of the body, so it's a huge component. And I think in the future we'll see these data processing centers. We get more and more energy hungry. You get more bigger fraction of the energy consumption. I think it's one worry to be concerned, but I think it's not the most important one. I think the most important in my opinion is the fact that we have a lot of regulation for nuclear energy, for labor, for whatever, but AI that lives in this big corporation is completely out of scrutiny from public. You don't vote for Google, you don't vote for Facebook. They have their own entity. They have such a tremendous power that nobody controls them, and they control our lives in very, very strong ways. Yeah. So that's for me the major concern. So how we create the right checks and balances that we have for politicians that we don't have for these big organizations that have such a tremendous power that know so much about us without our control.
Yeah, indeed. That's really scary, actually.
Yeah.
So kind of like a similar topic is the question of Jennifer Riggins, who asks, Sam Brown at .everyone taught me that responsible tech in part is for everyone. But if AI isn't made by a diverse, inclusive bunch, can it be for everyone?
Yeah, this diversity is also a very interesting topic. It's been lots of discussion. In my opinion, I think, we are, as humans, take ourselves very unbiased. We think we are very fair in our decisions on what it seems itself as unfair. I think in this respect, AI can help a lot. I think given the right data, it can be less biased than humans, I'll say, because it's not conditioned by emotions, by history, by culture. It's tries to make sense of the data. And if the data itself isn't biased, he has access to the right data, I'll say algorithms will help to solve or at least mitigate this problem and making it more assessing. For instance, there are today people that live, living in Kenya or wherever, with very little resources, that can have access to amazing, as long as they have access to the internet, and can have access to amazing content from archives, from GitHub, from public available code. They can do amazing things, very little education, as long as they have internet and they can read, and they have very basic mathematical foundation. They can do amazing things. And I think in this respect, AI can help and can leverage on this and make the world less biased and less unequal for one man. But on the other hand, it makes the health distribution much more unequal. That's true. So we are in a situation where we don't have number 2 for Google. We just took Google paragraph. There is no number 2, so there is no competition. It's monopolies. These companies live in monopolies, and they will become more and more so in the future. That's really, for me, the danger.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Thank you so much. We still have I think 4 more minutes if you still want to talk a bit more. So one thing that you said was that as long as the data is not biased, but is there any, basically the people who gather data, the way we gather data, those frameworks and structures that are based on kind of our understanding of the problem or of our reality might themselves be biased. So is there even such a thing like unbiased data?
No, there is no such thing. No, that's a good point, a good question. There is no, I believe there is no such a thing as unbiased data. The same thing as I believe there is no such a thing as an absolute morality. There is, I don't find a way we can build a absolute moral system. It's impossible. But what you can do, and the AI community is coming to terms with this, is making sure that we get some feedback loops in the system. So in the usual way, in the old way of viewing AI, you just have the rules, you put the rules, and the rules are immutable. They are there forever, and they keep doing the same again and again without question what you do. today we have technology that's far from there. It's the reinforcement learning, where the system is continuous learning, and if you find that the predictions or the outcomes are inconsistent, or are for instance putting some minorities at risk, or putting some being biased towards some community, it will find out and will correct automatically, either with human inputs or by itself. So we have this capability to algorithms to self-improve. Of course, they can enter into bubbles, into a local minimum, called local minimum, and they can create a lot of harm without before being aware that they're doing damage. Because, for instance, climate change, we know we are doing wrong with all the carbon emission, but maybe at the moment we see the wrong, it's too late. So that can be the risk of that. That's why I think it's always important to have humans in the loop.
Yeah, interesting. Do you think that there will be a point when we don't need humans, where AI is so good at interpreting context?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're trying to achieve now. Now we're trying to get humans all over the place, to get rid of humans. Even more so with this pandemic, and that's I think we're not seeing the full picture, and I think we can create a really scary situation for humanity if we get rid of all humans, all the process. Just thinking about profits optimization. In the short term, they may deliver on that, but in the long term, we may lose as a society in ways that we cannot understand fully now. It's just we are creating such a powerful technology that nobody really knows all of the implications that can, the outcomes that. And I also get again to the argument of Harari. I think it's a strong argument. I think probably the biggest risk is the hacking. These technologies attacking how the most fundamental concept of human being, that is the sense of me, of I, self. It's attacking it. It's changing it to ways that we are not even aware. Yeah.
Wow, that is very thought-provoking. Thank you so much.
No worries.
For joining us today. Are you going to be on Umbrella for more questions or comments or chats?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So thank you again. Have a great day, and yeah.
Sorry for the delay. Yeah.
No, it's totally fine. Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a break here on track 2, and we're gonna continue at 8 p.m. with Fabio. Oh, I'm so sorry, Fabio. Your last name is really Tiritico. And until then, join me on the lightning track, and we'll see each other here at 8. Bye.